The international break is almost over and Newcastle have begun preparations for the Fulham away game this weekend. Some exciting news as Newcastle grow ever closer to signing the Australian wonder kid Garang Kuwal, and the Newcastle United owners have received some criticism from unhappy and disappointed fans following the club's need to cancel and void some tickets for an upcoming match day. Yes guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Toon Tuesdays, your weekly roundup of Newcastle United news. As I mentioned, it was the international break at the weekend, but there is still loads going on in the world of Newcastle United, so we have plenty to get through in this video. I know loads of you guys have been watching this series for years since I started it, but some of you have still not subscribed. We are getting very close to 40,000 subscribers, which is just crazy. So if you do watch this video every week but haven't yet hit that big red button and subscribed, please do. It really helps the channel, it really helps me, and we are on the daily upload right now. Loads of videos coming up this week as we build up to the Fulham game this weekend. So please subscribe and let's get on with the video. So the international break is just about coming to a close now, and I'm going to be honest, I am very much looking forward to the return of the Premier League of Newcastle United this weekend. Don't get me wrong, I love the Euros, I love the World Cup, even though it's at a strange time this year. I will get behind England, I will enjoy the tournament, but the international breaks are often not very exciting, especially when England haven't won a game in 6, which is the first time in 29 years we've done that. So England, not a great international break, but you could argue that Newcastle have had a worse international break because of the number of injuries we've seen over the last week. Isak coming back to Newcastle early due to injury. Bruno coming home early. Chris Wood coming back with an injury. To add to that, Crafty already injured, Shelvey already injured, question marks over Wilson and Maxi. It has not been a great international break for Newcastle, and we will come on to that a little bit later in the video as we look towards the Fulham game. In terms of players who did feature for their countries over the last week, we saw Pope play twice for England, as I mentioned, losing the first against Italy, and despite coming back against Germany, ultimately drew that game, and Pope, who could have potentially done a little bit better with the final goal. Having said that, it shows that he is certainly in the running for the #1 spot at the World Cup. I think, if we're honest, Gareth Southgate loves Pickford, doesn't he? And despite the fact that Pope did get his chance, I imagine he'll be on the plane, but will he get his shot and goal at the World Cup? We'll just have to wait and see. Trippier was on the bench for both games for England, but I do fully expect him to be on the plane. In terms of some other players who have had a bit of better news in their international games, Lewis won his game for Northern Ireland against Kosovo. Almiron won his game against the UAE. Fraser won his game for Scotland. Shaw was on the bench, but Switzerland beat Spain. So great to see that some players have had some good performances out there, and a few of which actually still play tonight. Elliot Anderson was called up for the under-21 squad, but in the end missed it due to injury. Hoping to maybe see him on the international stage very soon. But in terms of good news for Elliot Anderson, he did sign a new long-term contract with Newcastle United, which is great news. A player that we have seen a little bit of so far this season. We saw a lot of in the pre-season, and we know what a player he can be. I'm really looking forward to, as Eddie Howe does Eddie Howe's things and slowly integrates him into the team. I can't wait to see more and more of him, and it just shows, you know, what the club, what Dan Ashworth is trying to achieve with some of these younger upcoming players. Nail them down on a long-term deal. It's not the case where we are going to let players like this go anymore. We are going to keep them on. And Dan Ashworth is clearly working hard to really try and improve the academy, the youth of the club. And we can see that as Newcastle grow ever closer, as reported by Sky Sports, that we are very much on the verge of signing the wonder kid Garang Kual, the Egyptian-born Aussie player who is set to sign for Newcastle United. He actually played in the international break for Australia and is set to actually go with Australia to the World Cup in Qatar. Now 18 years old, and for the time he had on the pitch, looked great. He played in the Aussie All-Stars against Barcelona not too long ago, and Xavi, obviously the Barcelona manager, called him incredible. There's been a couple of teams sniffing around this player, but Newcastle United look set to sign him on as much as 25 grand a week, which also I think is why we have given Anderson that upgraded long-term deal, because if we are going to go out and bring in young players like this, we want to be rewarding the players that are doing a good job. So fingers crossed, Newcastle can get this one over the line. And yeah, it's great news to see that Dan Ashworth's out there bringing in, finding these young players and bringing them to Newcastle. Some off-the-field news now as Newcastle United continue to hire and appoint new staff members at the club. It's not just players that we are looking to bring in right now. There is a whole host of job roles appearing at Newcastle United from top to bottom at the moment as we look to really try and improve the club. And a lot of these job roles, in my opinion, were probably seen as an additional expense to the previous ownership, something that really they didn't want to pay for, but under the new ownership is something that's really going to help us take that next step as a team and a club. And the newest member of Newcastle United is Andrew Forrester, who is the club's new first-team data analyst. Andrew has said that he is over the moon to have accepted a role as a data analyst for Newcastle United. To work for a club I've grown up supporting is an incredible feeling, and I can't wait to get going. As I say, Newcastle appear to be opening up a whole host of new job roles at the club right now that previously, as I say, weren't appointed. But as Newcastle look to grow and improve, it's appointments like this that are really going to help. And in football, statistics, XGs, are really becoming a big thing, and I can't say that I am the master of stats. I leave that to Alex over at the Toon review, but it's something that will certainly help Eddie Howe. It'll help Dan Ashworth as we look into the transfer windows of what do we need to improve on. And I wish Andrew the very best of luck, and it will not surprise me to see more roles like this being appointed at Newcastle United. If you're a fan of Jake Humphries and his High Performance podcast, then I've got good news, as Eddie Howe is set to be the latest guest over there. If you don't know, Jake Humphries is a sports presenter, has quite a few Newcastle fans because of the fact that he stuck up for us under previous ownerships when, people like Rio Ferdinand were trying to say that it was all fine and dandy. Jake Humphries stuck up for the Newcastle fans, so I think he has gained a bit of a following of Toon fans, and because of that, Eddie Howe was one of the highest voted people to get next over on the podcast. He's already had people like Gerrard, Lampard, Johnny Wilkinson, another local hero, Sean Dyche, a whole host of people, and Eddie Howe is set to be next on there. I actually got distracted before making this video because I started watching some of his other stuff. He's great. It's a very interesting podcast if you've not seen it already. The Eddie Howe one is not out yet, but I expect it to be in maybe the next couple of weeks, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And a local school, St. Joseph's local primary school, is looking to raise a bit of money. And how have they done that? They asked Newcastle United players if they would do a self-portrait and signed so they could raffle them off. And the current, and they got loads of responses. They got loads of players send back self-drawing pictures of themselves. And Jonjo Shelvey's drawing of himself is currently up for raffle. They only cost £1 a ticket, and I think there's 3 days left until this one goes. So if you fancy Jonjo Shelvey's self-portrait signed, jump on, pay the £1 for the raffle ticket, and maybe you could win it. And as I say, that is the first of what I believe to be many self-portraits that are going to St. Joseph's Primary School. As I say, a local primary school looking to raise some money for science resources. So if you fancy trying to win yourself a picture of Jonjo Shelvey, a self-drawing of Jonjo Shelvey, put in £1, help a local cause, and as I say, there's meant to be more than that as well, so keep your eyes peeled as well. As we look forward to the return of the Premier League this weekend and Newcastle heading down to Craven Cottage to take on Fulham, there has been controversies on and off the pitch. On the pitch, because of the number of injuries that have popped up over this international break. Just when you thought everybody was close to fitness again. In that Bournemouth game, it's thought that Maxi and Wilson just missed out. Bruno played in that game. Fast forward a week, Isak's injured, Wood's injured, Bruno has potentially picked up another knock, and now we're just praying that we've got a fit striker in time for Fulham this weekend. The good news is that because Wilson and Maxi weren't on international break, it's thought that both of them will be available for the game this weekend, and if that's the case, at least we have Wilson to lead the line. We have Maxi, who we have missed over the last few games, to really help with that attacking threat. Despite Bruno returning early from his international break with Brazil, he has been in the gym, and fingers crossed maybe he could be available this weekend as well. And if that's the case, and the three of them are available, then maybe we'll be alright. Still worrying, however, to hear that Isak could well be out for a few weeks. It's still unknown exactly what his injury is, plus the fact that Wood is also unavailable. Let's hope that Wilson is indeed fit, and we will come back to the Fulham game later in the week as we hear more about it, and I will have a full preview probably on Friday. So if you're not subscribed, hit the red button and do not miss the full preview later in the week. Now, off the pitch. It's bad news for any Newcastle fans heading down to Fulham this weekend via train, as it has now been announced there will be a train strike this weekend. The day Newcastle play Fulham, there will be no trains north of York, and there will be a limited train service between York and London. So, despite the fact that when Brighton played Crystal Palace and the game was postponed due to a train strike, Newcastle fans who are making one of, if not the longest away journey this weekend, the game looks set to go ahead. And some fans had asked that the game could be postponed because of the fact that it's going to be even tougher to get down there. Newcastle fans who journey the furthest of any Premier League side, to have the trains off is a big thing. They're looking to now have to find transport via bus, via car, trying to get down to York somehow and then get the train from there, having to get hotels to go down the night earlier, come back the day later, and will the train lines or the Premier League help towards this cost? I would very much doubt it. So big up to any fans that are making the way down there. Fingers crossed you can get there safely, and hopefully it can be a good result to rewards, because I've no doubt that the Newcastle fans will sell out that away section regardless. But even if you were lucky enough to get a ticket and to organise transport down to the Fulham game, a number of Newcastle fans have now had phone calls to let them know that the ticket that they've got for the Fulham game has now been void and cancelled. Newcastle United and the owners have taken a bit of stick online over the last few days, as it appears Newcastle have oversold on tickets for the Fulham game this weekend. Tickets went on sale as they normally do, sold out as they normally do, and very close, as I say, literally just this week, fans have begun getting phone calls from the Newcastle United box office to let them know that they accidentally oversold on away tickets for the Fulham game, and that a selection of tickets will have to be voided because there won't be enough room in the stadium for the number of tickets that have been sold. Now, there's question marks over as to why this has happened. Has there been a loss in communication between Fulham and Newcastle? Have they accidentally told them there would be more tickets available than there should have? Have Newcastle accidentally put too many on the website and nobody realised? One of the theories is actually that they put tickets on and then in error put more on, as it was noticed that around 400 went on sale. I think when it got down to around 80 or so loyalty points, they sold out. The day later, it would appear that another 400 or so went on sale. Now, have they accidentally duplicated a number of those tickets? It looks that way, and understandably, there is a number of Newcastle fans who are, upset and disappointed that, especially with having to make extra arrangements for travel, have now been told that they can't go to the game anyway. And it's understandable why people would be upset and disappointed. The club, however, the owners have tried to do something about this. For any fans that have received that phone call, let me know down below. Have you had that phone call? Have you been let know that you will not be able to attend that away game anymore? Newcastle have tried to make right. They are obviously refunding all of those tickets. No one will have to pay for a ticket if they've had this phone call and cannot get to the game. They're also allowed to keep the loyalty point, so you get a loyalty point every time you buy the away ticket. You can keep that point, but you still get the refund. Newcastle are also offering to refund any cost for travel and hotel, obviously, if you are able to, because some hotels you can cancel up to a certain time, etc. If you're able to get the refunds yourself, that's great. If you're not able to, Newcastle are offering to refund all of that cost you've spent on that, and they're also giving these fans first choice to any other away game this season. So there is disappointment, there is upset that if you had your heart set on getting to the Fulham game, that is really bad news. But at least these fans won't be charged and won't lose any money on hotel or travel. Obviously, it's a blunder by the club. It's obviously a mistake. They didn't intend to go out and upset fans like this, but at least they have put stuff in place there to make sure nobody's out of pocket and getting first choice to another away game this season. And there's some good ones to come up, near the end of the season. Leeds away, I've no doubt that will be a very popular one. To get first choice to that one instead, is still quite good. But if that's happened to you, let me know down below, and let me know your thoughts on that. As I say, understandably, people are, especially with the travel and having to go out your way to do all that extra stuff and then find out that you still can't go to the game is really harsh. But to say that there's been criticism, yeah, it's a mistake. Sometimes these things happen, and at least, as I say, that's one thing Newcastle have been really good at doing, is that even if things don't go quite right, at least we're jumping on it and we're trying to make right very quickly. Refunds for this, refunds for that. And as I say, hopefully the fans who have lost their ticket will be, happy with what's the club have done, and to hopefully get a first choice ticket to another away game very soon. And there you have it, guys. That is this week's Toon Tuesdays. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. As always, if you're new to the channel, or maybe you've been watching for a while, but still haven't hit that subscribe button, please do. As I say, it really helps the channel, and we are posting loads of content at the minute. And fingers crossed, we'll be back later this week with another video celebrating a win against Fulham at the weekend. Alright, guys, thanks for watching as always. Enjoy the week. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.